Hey guys, tonight we're heading to the edge of the known world. At least, that's how it feels. You stand alone on a jagged rock, surrounded by the infinite gray churn of the ocean, fog curling up like ghostly fingers around the tower behind you. The air smells of salt, rust, and something else, something older. In the distance, a foghorn moans like it's grieving something lost, and the sound echoes off the sea with a low groan that settles in your bones. You haven't even started your shift yet, but the island already feels hungry. You're here to tend the lighthouse. Just you, the gulls, and whatever that thing was scratching the window last night. Welcome to the 1800s, where lighthouse keeping is a romantic solitude. It's a slow unspooling of your sanity, one tide at a time. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment letting me know your location and what time it is where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've only been on this rock for a few hours, but already, time feels different. You stepped off a supply boat into the kind of wind that feels personal, like it knows your name. And the minute the boat disappeared back into the fog, you realize something. There's no turning back. The mainland isn't a place you go anymore. It's a myth, a memory, a trick of the horizon. The tower looms behind you, tall, narrow, cold. The keeper before you left last week, and you half expected to see a welcome note. Nope, just dust and the sour smell of long-decayed rations. The last guy didn't bother cleaning the place. That's your first job. You drag your duffel through the warped doorway. Inside, the lighthouse is a vertical coffin. Stone walls, spiral staircase, iron railings pitted with salt. The floor creaks like it's annoyed to meet you. You open a small storage door and find boots, still damp. You don't know why that feels worse than if it were blood. By noon, you've already invented 2 new cuss words while scrubbing mold off the kitchen walls. The old stove wheezes when you light it, but at least the kettle works. You drink strong, bitter tea while seagulls scream outside like someone's being murdered. Welcome to your new soundtrack. Mainstream fact for you. In the 1800s, most lighthouse keepers were completely isolated for weeks or months at a time. Supplies came only by boat, and only if the weather allowed. Some stations, like the one you're on, were considered inaccessible at least part of the year. You're not just alone. You're deliberately alone. That's the job. Someone has to keep the light burning so ships don't end up decorating the seabed. And right now, that someone is you. Your daily checklist is pinned to a board with a nail. Check the lens. When the clock works. Clean the glass. Record weather and visibility in the log. Stay sane. Okay, that one's not written but heavily implied. You spend most of the day climbing. Up the spiral steps to the lantern room. Then back down to fetch tools, then up again. You've never been this sore in your life. Every muscle protests. Your calves scream louder than the gulls. And the foghorn, oh, the foghorn. It's controlled by a hand-crank pump and weight-driven bellows. Every 4 seconds, it lets out a sound like a dying whale with regrets. You'll learn to love that sound, or hate it. Either way, it'll be with you, even in your dreams. Fringe tidbit. Some early foghorns were powered by compressed air or steam whistles. One Scottish model was so loud it reportedly caused fish to beach themselves in confusion. So if you start hearing weird thumps outside at night, that might be why, or it might not. At dinner, you break open a tin of preserved mutton that smells like betrayal. The biscuits are so hard you briefly consider using one as a weapon. You light a single oil lamp, and shadows leap across the walls. You sit alone, chewing slowly, watching those shadows shift like they're rehearsing something. Then the sun sets, and it's not a gentle fade. Out here, the dark slams shut like a vault door. 1 minute it's golden blue. The next it's blacker than ink. The waves vanish, replaced by a soundscape of splashes and moans and creaks. Something out there is alive, or a lot of somethings. You begin your night watch. Every half hour, you must inspect a flame and adjust the mechanism that turns the Fresnel lens. It's an elegant piece of 19th century engineering. Dozens of glass prisms focus into a single beam that can reach 20 miles. It's also fragile, and you're now its servant. Historians still argue whether the psychological toll of isolation was fully understood by maritime authorities. Some reports suggest they knew and simply didn't care. After all, lightkeepers weren't meant to be happy. They were meant to be reliable. So you climb again. Up those steps, your legs like lead. The lamp room is sweltering, the heat from the flame warping the air. You check the wick, polish the glass, record the time in your log. You pause to breathe and stare out across the ocean. Nothing, just black water and stars. But as you stand there, a feeling creeps over you, like someone's behind you. You turn quickly. Of course, no one. But the shadow in the corner doesn't move when the flame flickers. Not at first. By 2 a.m., you've begun talking to yourself. That's normal. Everyone does it. Keeps you sharp, right? You hear tapping on the window. Just the wind. Or maybe a bird, except it's rhythmic. Like Morse code. You note it in the log, because hey, if you lose your mind, you might as well leave breadcrumbs. Sleep comes in shifts. You wedge yourself onto a too-short cot and wrap in 3 blankets. It's freezing, and the wind groans through every crack. Your dreams are odd. You're still in the tower, but it's upside down, underwater, filled with ticking clocks. You wake up gasping, clutching your chest, and swear you heard someone whispering in the stairwell. You light your lamp. Nothing there. Just cold stone and the distant groan of the sea. Your first dawn on the island is a pale smear across the sky. You make tea with rainwater and watch the world flicker into gray. You survived one night. Only 37 more to go. Maybe. The days don't pass here. They stretch like taffy over a slow flame. By your second full day, you start to realize that the lighthouse isn't just a building. It's a world. A world with only 3 floors, 2 windows, and 1 voice, yours. You wake up stiff, sore, and vaguely offended by how your back feels like it belongs to a man twice your age. Breakfast is dry bread, tea, and regret. You check the supply cupboard again, hoping the mutton tin you opened yesterday will have miraculously resealed itself with something better inside. It has not. It still smells like despair. You glance outside. The ocean is calm now, deceptively calm. It sits there, glassy and wide, like it's watching you, waiting. You don't wave back. The checklist still hangs on the wall, smug and silent. So you climb, step by step, spiraling upward in a tower that never seems to end. Your boots echo with each footfall, but somehow it doesn't sound quite right. There's a weird resonance in the stone, like the place is listening. You joke to yourself, haunted architecture. But the air doesn't laugh. At the top, you tend to the light. You clean the Fresnel lens, careful not to smudge the perfectly angled glass prisms. They sparkle in the sunlight, scattering rainbows like a disco ball for ghosts. You admire it for a second, then catch your own reflection in the glass. It doesn't blink when you do, probably just the angle. Back down again, then up, then down. Your legs are becoming pistons. Your shoulders ache from hauling water up from the cistern. Every task is a workout. By the end of the week, you'll either be incredibly fit or one pulled muscle away from screaming into the void. You try reading to pass the time. There's a small bookshelf left behind by the last keeper, filled with damp, warped volumes. Titles like Moral Instruction for Young Mariners, Naval Signal Flags and Their Interpretation, and most ominously, Solitude, the Soul's Companion. That one has underlines. Lots of them. You flip through the pages and find a pressed flower between 2 chapters. A daisy crumbling to dust. On the next page, someone scribbled a single line in shaky pencil. She danced on the rocks. You stare at it longer than you mean to. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse keepers in the 19th century often suffered from extreme monotony and isolation. Some developed elaborate routines, even fake events, just to mark time. One keeper kept track of days by shaving alternating sides of his face. You decide to adopt something similar, maybe a theme for each day. Mirthless Monday, Tuna Tin Tuesday, Whale Watching Wednesday. Even though there are definitely no whales, you keep looking, just in case. On day 3, you have a conversation with the stove. Not on purpose. You stub your toe on it and say something rude, and it responds with a hiss. You freeze. It hisses again. Just the kettle boiling. You assure yourself. But the air smells faintly of sulfur, and you make a mental note not to turn your back on it. At night, the mist returns. It moves like it's alive, snaking over the rocks, curling around the base of the tower. The foghorn moans every 4 seconds, a cry into the nothingness. You count the intervals to fall asleep, like a lullaby made of whale songs and static. You dream of stairs, endless stairs, spiraling downward this time, each step crumbling beneath your feet. Someone or something is behind you, just out of reach. You wake up halfway down your actual stairs barefoot, holding a lantern. You have no memory of getting up. Fringe tidbit. Some 19th century keepers claim to experience phantom shifts where they wake up in the tower's highest room or outside on the rocks, with no recollection of how they got there. Theories range from sleepwalking to environmental madness triggered by barometric pressure and isolation. You start keeping a dream log, just in case. Your first entry reads, stairs, teeth, thunder, my name backwards, can't pronounce it. Then the ink trails off. By day 5, your world is compressed. You're aware of every creak in the stairwell. You know exactly how many seconds it takes to boil water. You know the color of the sky at each hour. Leaden at dawn, bone white by noon, bruised lavender by dusk. You find a small mirror tucked behind the storage cabinet. At first, you think it's broken. The reflection seems delayed. Your head tilts, then the image follows. You try smiling. The mirror version doesn't. You stop using the mirror. Historians still argue whether the architectural design of lighthouses played a role in psychological degradation. Spiral staircases, narrow corridors, lack of right angles. Some say it subtly warps the brain over time, inducing a kind of vertical vertigo. Whether that's true or not, one thing is clear. This place is changing you. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, like sea air rusting iron. You start hearing things, not dramatic ghost noises, just things, a distant knock on the outer wall, dripping when there's no rain, breathing behind the pantry door. You investigate each one. Find nothing. Start keeping notes anyway. 2:17 a.m. Tapping from floorboards. Rhythmic. Morse code. 4:02 p.m. Goes silent for 3 full minutes. Unnatural. 11:33 p.m. Whisper on the stairs. Wait your turn. You reread your own handwriting and feel a twinge in your spine. It's shaky. You mean to write in cursive. You don't write in cursive. Your meals become minimalist performances. You arrange the plate just so, light a candle, and give each course, usually 2 crackers and a spoonful of jam, a name, ocean tartlets with sea wind glaze. You laugh at yourself. Then again, it's echoing. You worry it might not be your laugh anymore. You spend a full hour staring at the rotation of the Fresnel lens. It's mesmerizing, like the eye of a machine god, scanning the sea for sin. You feel guilty for thinking that. On the 7th day, you find something new, a scrap of paper wedged into the floorboards. Yellowed, torn, for words, written in what looks like soot. Don't clean the mirror. You haven't touched the mirror in days. Still, you slide it out again. Just a peek. This time, the reflection smiles first. You start your morning with a firm decision not to panic. That seems like a healthy boundary. After all, it's just a mirror, a trick of the light. Maybe your sleep's been patchy. Maybe the dye of lukewarm tea and possibly expired jam has started rearranging your neurons. So, you tell yourself it's fine. Everything is fine. You repeat it like a prayer while making your rounds. You skip the mirror today, but as the hours drag on, it nags at you. It's not just that smile. It's that for a split second, you're sure the reflection's eyes weren't the same color as yours. You keep catching yourself glancing toward that cabinet. It's like the mirror wants you to look again. Nope, not today, Satan. Instead, you scrub a lens. That usually helps. Something about the motion, the rhythm, the sense that maybe, just maybe, You're doing something useful out here. The sea may be vast and empty, but this light, your light, might save a ship someday. Or at least give someone a moment of orientation in a very disoriented world. You find a faint crack in one of the lower prisms. You polish around it, careful and slow, humming a tune you don't quite recognize. Something old, a sailor's lullaby. You're not sure where it came from. You hum it anyway. By now, the routine has become your scaffolding. Wake, tea, climb, clean, scan, climb down, log entries, inventory, short walk on the ledge, wind permitting. Lunch, check the fuel, evening sweep, dinner, sit, listen. That's the one that's got more intense. You keep hearing it now. More often, that low, steady murmur. Almost like voices through a wall. Too muffled to make out, but always there when you're still, and always gone when you go looking for it. One afternoon, while sorting through the ancient tins in the pantry, you come across a small, battered box labeled Personal Effects. The handwriting is hard to read, shaky, frantic cursive, but you make out the name, McCreevy, the keeper before you. No one said what happened to him, just that he left his post. That's the official phrasing. Inside the box, a cracked compass, a rusted harmonica, and pages torn from a journal. You read slowly, lips barely moving. Day 48. I think it's copying me. Not perfectly, but close enough to make you doubt. Day 51. It stood behind me while I shaved. Didn't flinch when I moved. Day 54. I smashed the mirror. The shards whisper for an hour. You pause, glance toward the cabinet. It's still closed. You keep reading. Day 61. Wind told me to jump. Said I'd float if I smiled. Day 63. No wind today. That means it's inside. You put the pages down, very slowly. Then you light the stove and boil water, just for the noise. It doesn't help much, but at least it's something. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse logs from the 1800s often included increasingly erratic notes toward the end of a keeper's tenure. Some wrote elaborate dreams. Others detailed voices from the sea. One log simply read, "No one else remembers the beginning." Fringe tidbit. There's a rumor, unverified of course, that one Scottish keeper carved tally marks into his teeth to track the days internally. His skeleton was found grinning, with 108 notches filed neatly across his molars. You think about that as you chew your dry biscuit very, very carefully. The night fog returns, thicker than ever. It clings to the lighthouse windows like wet cotton, pressing in as if it wants to come inside. The beacon's rotation stutters once, just for a blink, but you definitely feel it, like a missed heartbeat. You climb back up to check the mechanism. Everything looks fine, but your handprint's already on the brass when you arrive. That's odd. You don't remember touching it today. You check your hands. Clean, dry. You hear something from below. Footsteps on the stairs. Not echoing up. Rising. Slow. Deliberate. You freeze. No one appears. You wait. Nothing. Eventually, you descend one step at a time, clutching the railing like it's the last real thing in the world. Every shadow seems to stretch a little longer now. Even the angles in the tower don't feel quite right anymore. You swear the bottom landing used to have 3 steps. Now it has 4. You count again. Still 4. You sleep badly. The dreams have changed. No more falling. Now you're watching. Something is walking through your dreams, tall, lanky, and always just out of frame. You never see its face, but it hums that lullaby back at you. Out of tune. You wake up with the tune still in your ears. Historians still argue whether lighthouse hallucinations stem primarily from isolation, nutritional deficiency, or carbon monoxide from faulty stoves. Others believe the constant pressure responsibility of lives depending on one little light drove keepers to project that burden outward, into sounds, into shadows, into things. You try writing a log entry to calm your nerves. Day 9. Felt eyes today. Not sure where from. Not sky. Not sea. Walls. Then Beneath it, in handwriting not yours, let them blink first. You stare at it for a long time. You decide to skip logging for a while. Instead, you scrub the stairs. You organize the canned food alphabetically. You count nails in the tool drawer 74, including the bent ones. You even polish the doorknob until it reflects your face. Your face. Definitely your face. Just very tired. On your walk around the base, you notice something new. A circle of stones on the western ledge. You don't remember placing them, but they're too neatly arranged to be random. There are 7 of them. Smooth, flat gray. Perfect skipping stones. You try to ignore them, but the wind whistles louder here. It pushes at your coat like impatient fingers. You turn back, but not before hearing a voice on the wind. Unmistakable this time. Your turn now. You don't remember the walk back to the tower. The mirror is waiting. You open the cabinet. Your reflection isn't moving. You close it again. You're done for the night. You crawl into bed and lie very, very still. The lantern burns low, and you leave it on, just in case. Sleep comes slowly. Not like drifting into a dream, but like sinking beneath dark water. Heavy, inevitable, and just before you slip away, you swear you hear breathing. Not yours. You wake up sweating, which is strange, considering the room is cold enough to fog your breath. The little oil lamp on the table is out, though you remember leaving it on. You sit up slowly, joints creaking, blanket wrapped tight around your shoulders like a toddler hiding from nightmares. Your fingers shake as they reach for the matchbox. 1 strike. 2. Finally, a weak flame flickers back to life. The room is empty. You tell yourself it was just a dream. A vivid one. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe that stale biscuit from last night is staging a rebellion. You make a note to inventory the dried goods again. You're pretty sure when the flour tin smells. Off. But something about the way the shadows linger in the corners feels off too. They cling like thick smoke, refusing to melt away even when you tilt the lamp toward them. The mirror cabinet is closed. You don't check inside. You go about your morning routine. Force yourself through it. There's comfort in the process. Fuel check, wick trim, lens polish. Familiar motions. Predictable. But you keep glancing at the trapdoor in the floor. The one that leads to the storage cellar. It's been creaking. Not from footsteps. Not exactly. More like breathing. Wet, labored breathing. As though someone or something beneath the floorboards is matching your rhythm, waiting for you to pause. You skip breakfast. Mid-morning, a gull slams against the window. You flinch, nearly dropping the lantern. The thud echoes up the stairwell, followed by a long, slow smear of blood down the glass. You're on your feet before your brain catches up, climbing the spiral like your life depends on it. When you reach the top, the gull is gone. No feathers, no body, just a long, single streak of red that curves upward against gravity. You wipe it clean. You don't look for explanations anymore. Mainstream historical fact. Many 19th century lighthouses lacked radios, relying entirely on visual signals. This meant no regular communication with the outside world, unless a supply boat braved the waves. Some keepers went months without human contact. Some years. That realization hits you harder today than before. You speak aloud at lunch, just to hear a voice, your own, ragged and unfamiliar. You narrate your sandwich assembly like you're hosting a Victorian cooking show. And here we have this lovely salted meat product, aged in despair and seasoned with mold. You laugh a little too hard at your own joke. It echoes, not just once, twice. Someone else is laughing. You spin, breath caught in your chest. Nothing, just a room, the peeling wallpaper, the wood grains that seem to shift when you look away. There's no one here. You check the logbook again, the one with McCreevy's notes. At the bottom of the last page, a new line has appeared, scratched in the corner with what looks like charcoal. You should really stop reading this. You slam the book shut. Outside, the wind howls. It rattles the shutters like a child trying to get in. You climb to the top. Something about the tower feels tighter today, like the walls are leaning in ever so slightly. like the lighthouse is holding its breath. You spot a ship on the horizon. It's barely more than a speck, but the sight makes your chest tighten. You run to the signal shelf, fumbling with the flags, knocking over a stack of charts. The signal book falls open to a page you've never marked before. The header reads, "For solitary keepers, emergency codes." You didn't know this existed. You scan the codes. Some you recognize. Need supplies. Ship in distress. Then, further down, one that makes your hands go still. Flag Zulu Whiskey Lima. Mental compromise. Request immediate relief. You lower your hands. Slowly. No way to raise it. You don't even know where those flags are. And even if you did, that ship's too far. Too fast. Already fading. And worst of all, you can't quite tell if it was really there. You try sketching in your journal, but the lines keep shifting. You draw a mast, look back, and now it's a tree. You draw sails, but they fade into smoke. Fringe tidbit. In 1857, a lighthouse keeper on White Shoal reported seeing an upside-down ship sailing through clouds. His entry was dismissed as nonsense until another keeper saw the same thing 60 years later and described it word for word. You stare at your sketchbook. Somewhere in the ink lines, a face stares back. It's not yours. You burn the page in the stove. That night, the knocking starts. You're halfway through your evening tea when you hear it. A slow, deliberate knock from the trapdoor below. Not banging, not desperate, just patient. 3 taps. Pause. 2 more. Like a code. You freeze. You wait. Silence. Then again, knock. 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 You want to believe it's rats. You need to believe it's rats. But rats don't knock in Morse. Historians still argue whether the isolation protocol for keepers was humane. Some suggest rotational cohabitation. Sending a second man out every few weeks might have saved more minds. But budgets were thin, and the assumption was always they knew what they signed up for. Did you? You lift the floorboard. Just a crack. No one's there. Just darkness. A silence so thick it almost makes your ears ring. You close it. You nail it shut. That night you sleep with a lantern on and a wrench under your pillow. You dream of the sea, black and glassy, stretching forever. You walk barefoot across it like ice, the sky pressing down. Far in the distance, the lighthouse turns. Its light is red now, and you realize with growing horror that the light is searching for you. You wake gasping. You light another lantern. You whisper to yourself, only 11 more days till the supply boat. Then you laugh, because you're not entirely sure what day it is. And suddenly, you're not sure there is a boat. You decide to count the days again. That should help, right? Structure, control, some kind of calendar in the madness. You pull out your logbook and flip back to the first entry. Day 1, excitement, optimism, maybe even a little pride. You remember sharpening your pencil for that one. The letters were tidy. Hopeful. You count forward, each page a day. But the math doesn't add up. There are too many entries. Some are short, just a line or two. Others are entire paragraphs written in a frantic, cramped hand that doesn't look like yours. They're all dated, sequentially, but there are 58 days logged. You've only been here 12. Haven't you? Your stomach sinks. You turn to the last entry. It just says, day, weather holding, reflection inconsistent, floor soft. You gently close the book. There's a soft thump beneath your feet, like something dropping below the floorboards. You don't move. You don't breathe. Instead, you decide it's time to clean the top lens again. It's what you can do. You drag the cleaning kit up the spiral staircase. It's heavier than usual. Or maybe you're just tired. The walls feel narrower, the steps steeper. You have to duck lower at the final turn before the lantern room. Inside, the light turns slowly, steady, methodical. You lose yourself in the routine again. Wipe, polish, inspect, turn, wipe again. Then you hear something. Behind the glass. Outside. A tapping. You squint through the curved lens and freeze. There's someone on the outer gallery. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A figure, standing still. You rush to the hatch and fling it open, the ocean wind howling in your face, freezing your skin. The gallery is empty, but the door's handle is warm. You back away slowly, close the hatch, and bolt it. Mainstream historical fact. Many lighthouse keepers in the 19th century reported phantom visitors, sailors who called to them through the fog, only to vanish when approached. Some thought it was the mind's way of reaching for connection. Others believed it was something else entirely. You start checking the perimeter more obsessively. Every window, every hatch. You seal gaps with old cloth. You hammer an extra nail into the supply cabinet. You wedge the mirror cabinet shut with a crowbar. Still, the tower feels breached. Every room now holds a strange hum, a pressure behind your eyes. You start noticing things slightly out of place. Your boots move from the door to the bed. The oil tin, now filled with salt water. The photo of your family back home, faces gently scratched out. You don't remember doing any of it. You want to believe it was you, that you're just sleepwalking, maybe, or cracking up in harmless, theatrical ways. Fringe tidbit. One 1800s lighthouse keeper believed he could anchor his thoughts by building tiny furniture. He filled the tower with miniature chairs and tables carved from driftwood. By the time relief arrived, he'd vanished. But the lighthouse was packed with doll-sized parlors and bedrooms, each labeled with dates from his past. You look around your own quarters. No dolls. Yet, but your food tins are stacked into towers now. Perfect pyramids. Even the dented ones. You're not doing that in your sleep. Evening falls like a hammer. The fog is thick again, so thick you can barely see the rocks below. The light turns, slicing through the mist like a slow eye blinking. You sit in the kitchen, stirring cold tea, and notice the sound again. Scraping. From beneath the floor. You nailed it shut. You remember doing it. You count the nails now. 7. All still in place. Still that sound. You lean down and press your ear to the floorboard. Scrape. Scrape. Pause. Then a knock. Once. Twice. Then, faintly, let me in. You leap up, hard in your throat. Your teacup shatters on the floor. You spend the night sitting in a corner with your back to the wall, a lantern on each side. The lights flicker occasionally, casting your own shadow in strange directions, upward, sideways, backward. You don't sleep. You don't even blink for a while. You remember something from your training manual, a page they laughed about during orientation. Should a keeper begin to experience auditory hallucinations, remember, it is not shameful to speak with them, but avoid answering questions. You used to think that was a joke. Now it feels like gospel. Historians still argue whether lighthouses were underfunded not just due to economic factors, but as a quiet dismissal of the role's psychological toll. As though the men who went mad simply weren't fit for the job, rather than the job being inherently unfit for sanity. You certainly don't feel fit for it anymore. The next morning, you find a note slid under your door. It's not on your paper. It's not your handwriting. It simply says, "Switch shifts with me." That's it. No name. No signature. You check the tower. Nothing. No boats on the horizon. No footprints in the damp floorboards. No sign of another soul. You begin to wonder, seriously, if the lighthouse has developed a sense of humor. You laugh. You cry. You do both at once. Then you flip the note over. The back says, "I don't want to be here either." You start locking the door to your room at night, which is objectively absurd, because if someone or something wanted in, there's no way your crooked latch would stop it. But the act of locking it, of turning that little brass knob and hearing the faint click, it makes you feel marginally in control, like the things outside are respecting social etiquette. But they aren't. Last night, the door unlocked itself. You're sure of it. You remember checking it twice. Then, just before sleep, you heard it. Click. Slow. Quiet. Followed by a long creak as the door opened 2 inches. Just enough to let the hallway breathe on your face. You didn't check. You didn't move. You just lay still, wide-eyed in the dark, waiting to feel something's fingers brush your blanket. It never happened. Or maybe it did, and you've just decided not to remember. Today, the wind is screaming, and not in the metaphorical, poetic way. It literally sounds like screaming. You try to rationalize it as air passing through cracks in the stonework, resonating like a flute. A weird, horrible sea flute. Still, it doesn't explain why it keeps calling your name. You're halfway through restocking the oil shelves when you hear it. Hey! Soft, friendly, a voice you almost recognize. From above, you freeze. The only thing above you is the lantern room. You didn't leave anyone up there. Your hands shake so badly you spill half the lamp oil. It pools around your boots, reflecting the wavering lamplight like liquid night. You back away from it, leaving oily footprints on the stone. You don't go upstairs today. Mainstream historical fact. Several lighthouses had elaborate pulley systems to deliver goods to the top floor, reducing the need to climb constantly. At some towers, these systems were later removed because they kept moving on their own. You check your own pulley. It's swinging gently. There's no wind down here. You spend the afternoon repairing the logbook. The last few pages have started to peel, as if the ink is rejecting the paper. You glue them back carefully, smoothing them out, but your hands keep shaking, so the glue smears. Some pages now stick together. You let them stay that way. Easier not to read what's between them. You find yourself talking out loud more often, telling jokes to seagulls, narrating the lighthouse routine as if hosting a dreary Edwardian reality show. And here we see the rare Keeperus isolatus in its natural habitat, pouring coffee with only mild psychosis. You laugh. No echo this time. You take a long sip of your coffee and catch your reflection in the kettle. It smiles before you do. You throw the kettle into the sea. Fringe tidbit. An 1840s keeper once claimed the tower stored memory. He wrote that the walls began reciting his own childhood back to him, whispering lullabies only his mother knew. He documented the lyrics until he could no longer tell if he'd invented them or if the tower had. You start hearing music. Faint warbled tunes, like an out-of-tune gramophone playing from beneath the floor. At first, it's just a few notes. Then whole melodies. Familiar ones. Personal ones. A lullaby your grandmother used to hum. A sailor's hymn you whistled as a child. You plug your ears. It continues. Not in your ears. In your teeth. Historians still argue whether the frequent mention of sound hallucinations in keeper logs points to true mental decline, or the presence of some acoustic anomaly in tower construction. The cylindrical walls in constant vibration may amplify pressure waves in ways we still don't fully understand. But what's humming in your molars doesn't feel like vibration. It feels like a message. You write it down. Not alone. Not aloud. Not yet. You tear it out. Burn it. The lighthouse creaks in protest. You walk the perimeter at dusk. The fog is so thick you can barely see past a railing. You feel for the edge with your boots, one slow step at a time, like navigating the edge of the world. Then you see it, a shape in the mist. Human height, human outline, just standing, unmoving, about 10 feet from the base of the tower. You don't call out. You've learned not to. You just stare, and it stares back. You feel it, not through eyes, through presence, like being watched through a keyhole by a house. You slowly back away, step by careful step, until the door shuts behind you. You don't check to see if it followed. You know better now. That night, the stairwell groans as though someone is climbing it one slow step at a time. You sit in the lantern room with a hammer in your hand, waiting. 1 hour, 2, 3, nothing. You fall asleep upright. When you wake, there's a pebble in your shoe. You didn't bring that inside. You take the trapdoor apart again, curiosity winning over fear. You shine the lantern down. The cellar is quiet. Salt barrels, canned fish, rotted rope. The back wall glistens slightly. You blink. The wall ripples. Only for a second, like it's made of water, or something behind it moved. You seal the trapdoor again. You start a list in the logbook. A quiet rebellion. A list of things that are still normal. Bread molds slowly. Oil burns consistently. Seagulls still scream. My boots still squeak. The rocks haven't moved. The moon is in the right place. I remember my name. You get to number 8, then stop. You realize you can't remember how long your fingernails have been this long, or when they started curling slightly, or when it got gray. You scratch it out, back to 7. You stop writing in the logbook for a few days. It's not a conscious decision. You just forget, or maybe you remember not to, which somehow feels worse. Either way, the log stays shut, the pencil untouched, gathering dust on your desk like a fossilized limb. Your days blur. Time folds. You wake up not knowing whether it's morning or evening. The light in the lantern room never really changes. It's either on or it's not. The sky is always gray. The air always damp. You eat when your stomach growls. Sleep when your eyelids betray you. You clean because if you don't, the salt builds up like a crust over everything, sealing you in your own tomb. The towers start to groan more often now. Not just with the wind. It's a new sound, lower, throaty, a kind of breathing. You swear you hear it most when you're standing still, especially at the midpoint of the spiral staircase, right where the draft from the cellar meets the warmth from the kitchen. You start pausing there, listening, counting the rhythm. It is breathing, and it's not yours. Mainstream historical fact. 19th century lighthouse towers were known to settle, stonework shifting, with beams flexing. The sound they made were so distinct that some keepers believed their towers had personalities. One Scottish keeper referred to his station as the Snorer. You name yours Henry. Henry is temperamental. Henry coughs in the morning and wheezes at night. Henry hates it when you slam the trapdoor. You apologize out loud once. The wind immediately calms. You don't speak ill of Henry again. You try to distract yourself, rearranging shelves, sorting nails, counting boards, anything to impose order on a space that's increasingly rebellious. You notice odd things. Salt lines forming on the ceiling. A spoon melted into the shape of a spiral. The mirror above the sink no longer reflects you directly. It's a half-second behind, enough to make you flinch every time. You cover it with a towel. Fringe tidbit. In 1868, a Welsh keeper kept a second diary entirely in mirror script, writing backwards so it could only be read in reflection. He claimed it was to hide secrets from the tower. Historians discovered it decades later. Every page simply repeated the same phrase, "I did not forget the door." You start remembering doors that aren't there. In dreams, mostly. But sometimes, in half-sleep, you see one in the cellar wall. A black door, slick and tall, with no handle. You wake up sweating, heart galloping, the taste of salt thick in your mouth. You check the cellar. No door. Not yet. Historians still argue whether the intense solitude of lighthouse duty altered the brain's circadian rhythm. Some experts believe that prolonged isolation combined with total environmental monotony led to micro-episodes of REM-like dreaming, while awake, brief, vivid hallucinations mistaken for reality. You don't know what to believe anymore. Last night, you woke up mid-sentence, speaking Latin. You've never spoken Latin. You write the words down phonetically, just to see if they repeat. You read them aloud, cautiously. The window shutters slam shut. You do not say them again. Today, a gull flies directly into the glass of the lantern room. Just wham! Full speed, like it meant to. Feathers, blood, a dull smear across the outer pane. It slides down like a bad painting and vanishes from view. You rush down to check. There's nothing there. No body. No feathers. Just a small, white stone where it should have landed. You don't touch it. You go back up and clean the glass, careful not to look too long into the smudge. It seems to move when you're not looking directly at it. That night, the light doesn't turn properly. You wind the mechanism again. Still, it hesitates, stutters, flickers. Then it starts turning backward. That's not supposed to happen. You flip the breaker and reset everything manually. It grinds back into motion, but now the light pulses with subtle red hue. You change the bulb, check the filter. Everything appears normal. It just looks wrong, like it's warning ships instead of welcoming them. You note that in the logbook, finally breaking your silence. Light now red. Either malfunction or new protocol. Don't remember authorizing either. You stare at your own handwriting. It doesn't look like yours. It's shakier, more desperate. You start writing notes to yourself. On the walls, in chalk, scraps of paper, the underside of drawers. Check the trapdoor daily. Don't answer knocking. Talk only when necessary. The goals are not goals. You begin to believe one of the goals is following you. It has a missing eye, a featherless neck. It stares from the same perch every morning. You name it Bishop. You tell it to go away. It doesn't. It just tilts its head too far, like its neck is unhinged. Then it opens its beak, and you swear you hear whispers. You shut the window and draw the curtain. Later, when you open the curtain again, Bishop is gone, but a dead mouse sits on the sill. Inside, not out. You don't own a mouse trap. You've never seen a mouse here. That night, the knocking starts again. From below, you remind yourself you seal the trapdoor with 6 nails, a padlock, rope. You shove the crate on top. 2. Still knock knock. Then a voice. Day 13. I just got here. You're not alone. You cover your ears. It doesn't help. The voice crawls up through your spine. You sit in the kitchen with a teacup in your hand, not drinking, not moving, until dawn bleaches the windows gray. Then you notice your tea is warm. You didn't make tea. You begin to sleep in short bursts. 20 minutes here, a groggy hour there. You stop calling at night. There's no point. The clouds hang so thick and low that even the sun gives up. You can't remember the last time you saw your own shadow. Today, you wake on the landing halfway up the stairs, head resting against the cold stone. There's a blanket around your shoulders. You didn't bring a blanket. You don't question it. You just get up, slowly, and climb the rest of the way to the lantern room, hand grazing the railing as though the metal might read your pulse and judge your intentions. The light still spins, still reddish, still wrong. You squint through the lens. On the horizon, barely visible, you spot a ship. No, 2 small silhouettes, motionless against the choppy sea. Their sails furled, no movement, just floating, as if waiting, as if watching. You blink and they're gone. You tell yourself it was just a fog. You start humming a tune from childhood to distract yourself, something about a donkey and a cart, but the words change halfway through. You don't recognize the language anymore. You keep humming anyway. Your voice isn't quite your own. Mainstream historical fact. In the late 1800s, several lighthouses began recording phantom ships in their logs, vessels that never docked, never signaled, and were never reported lost. One keeper claimed a ghost ship visited every full moon, hovering just offshore before disappearing like breath in cold air. You check the calendar. It's a full moon tonight. You find yourself locking every door now, even the cupboard, even the drawer where you keep your socks. The act of turning keys, sliding bolts, securing latches, it becomes compulsive, ritualistic. You mutter to yourself as you do it. Quiet phrases, repeated 3 times each. Keep it out, keep it in, keep it quiet. You're not sure which it you're referring to anymore. Fringe tidbit. A 19th century keeper Maine built a small wooden shrine out of driftwood and seashells, which he claimed to appease the tide spirits. He fed it salted meat weekly. When he ran out, his journal simply ended mid-sentence. You start leaving offerings. A crust of bread on the windowsill. A copper coin under your pillow. Your fingernail clippings in a sealed jar. You place them where it might see, but not touch. Historians still argue whether these behaviors were early signs of cabin fever or remnants of older maritime superstitions absorbed subconsciously. Some believe lighthouses, often built on ancient coastal sites, became magnets for leftover folklore and half-remembered curses. You don't care why. You just want the voices to stop. They don't scream anymore. Now they negotiate. They whisper terms in the plumbing. You run the tap, and they make promises. Let us in. Just one night. You won't remember. We can tell you how this ends. We can show you where the other keepers went. You start using rainwater instead. The tower seems displeased. Mildew blossoms in perfect circles on the walls. The kettle shrieks without heat. The stair treads creak with invisible weight. You break the mirror in the kitchen. You'd swear it started blinking. You try not to look at your own reflection anymore. It moves wrong. A moment too slow or too fast. Like a poorly dubbed film of your life. One night, you wake up with a mouthful of sand. There's none in your bed, none in the kitchen. But when you cough, tiny granules fall from your throat onto the floor, gritty and dry. You start coughing more after that. Sand. Always sand. You haven't seen a beach in weeks. You open the trapdoor again, only because it's already open when you wake. You don't remember unlocking it. The steps down are slick with condensation, or maybe sweat, or maybe something else. You descend, lantern in hand, 1 foot at a time. The cellar is colder than usual. You hear music again, waltz like echoing through the stone, as if the walls are hosting a masquerade ball in some hidden ballroom beneath the rock. And you weren't invited. There's a new barrel in the corner. You can bring it down here. You shine the light on it. The wood is smooth, fresh, no label. You knock. It knocks back. You seal the trapdoor again. Twice, then bolt it with a wrench. You scratch out the 7th rule on your wall and replace it with, the trapdoor is a liar. You eat in silence now. No more muttering. The voices grow louder when they think you're lonely. You chew slowly. Count bites. Drink water only after letting it sit for a full hour, just in case it needs time to settle. You start avoiding the windows. Too many faces lately. Too many teeth. One of them licked the glass. Your journal entries become less coherent. Some days you just draw spirals, or tally marks, or a perfect circle with a line through it. You don't remember why it matters, only that it must. You wake one morning to find your boots placed neatly by the door. You haven't worn them in 3 days. Your feet are wet and muddy. You see footprints in the kitchen, leading toward the trapdoor, then stopping, as if the walker vanished mid-step. You don't investigate. Instead, you write a new log entry. Walking in my sleep now. I think. Hope it's me. Might not be. Must be. Probably. Hopefully. Don't know. You burn that page. The flame burns blue. That night, Bishop returns. Missing eye. Crooked neck. Except now, something wriggles inside its beak. It drops it. A tooth. Human. Yours? You check your mouth. Still full. You lock the window. Bishop doesn't move. It watches all night. Just before dawn, you blink and it's gone. But in its place, etched into the glass, backwards and upside down, are the words. Soon you remember. You whisper your name repeatedly until it feels real again. Then you forget it. You wake to the sound of laughter, but not the kind that warms you. Not the kind you'd hear at a tavern or echoing across a harbor street. No, this laughter is dry, breathless, cracked at the edges like splintered driftwood. It peels up from the floorboards, snakes through the plumbing, then fades just as you reach for it. You check every room. You check twice. The trapdoor is still sealed. The cellar window, wait, there was never a window in the cellar. But today, somehow there is a perfect circle carved into the stone. You don't go near it. Not yet. You start keeping the lantern with you at all times, even in daylight, even in the bathroom. Mainstream historical fact. 19th century lighthouse keepers often carried whale oil lanterns room to room to conserve lighting costs. But some, especially those stationed alone, refused to extinguish the flame at night, claiming it kept unfriendly things at bay. One keeper famously refused to sleep in darkness for 11 straight years. Your flame stays lit. You've named it Molly. You talk to Molly now, whispering like an old friend. Sometimes she flickers twice when you ask a question. Sometimes you pretend that means yes. You ask her if she misses the sun. She flickers twice. You smile. That feels good, like something real. Then you find her old journal torn in half. Pages scattered like dead leaves along the stairs. You didn't tear it. The torn edge smells like sulfur. There's a single phrase repeated on the surviving pages. You left them behind. You left them. You left. You try not to read it again. Fringe tidbit. A keeper of the longship's lighthouse was found in 1887 with dozens of sea charts taped to the walls of his quarters, each marked with red X's in areas where no ship had ever wrecked. He told his replacement, "I'm mapping the places they whisper about." You begin drawing maps, circles, lines, coordinates you half remember from a dream. One leads to a rock you can see from the top of the lantern room. Just a black spike jutting from the waves like a shark tooth. You've never noticed it before. You watch it for hours. Nothing moves. Then, just before dusk, a figure appears on it. Tall, still, watching you. You raise your lantern. The figure does not respond. You lower the lantern. The figure raises its arm. You run. You sleep beneath the staircase that night, wrapped in an old sail, like a child hiding from thunder. Your dreams are full of birds and broken glass. One pecks at your teeth. Another asks you your name, but every time you try to answer, you vomit seawater. You wake gasping. Your pillow is soaked. You haven't had a pillow for 2 weeks. You find the door to the outside ajar. You never leave it open. Salt is crusted along the frame, thick and ridged like barnacles. You scrape some off and taste it before you can stop yourself. It's sweet. You vomit again. Later, while cleaning the pantry, you find canned peaches you don't remember storing. The label reads from below. That's it. No company name. No branding. You don't open it, but you hold it for a long time, staring at your reflection in the tin. It grins. Historians still argue whether lighthouses induce complex delusional states due to isolation alone, or whether the very architecture contributed. Winding stairs, echo chambers, narrow fields of view, mimicking the effects of sensory deprivation tanks. You believe it's the stairs. The spiral never ends. You count them again. 32 steps up, 33 steps down. That's new. You climb again. Same result. Up equals 32. Down equals 33. You try to find the missing step. You don't. But halfway up, you start hearing a faint chanting. Low, repetitive, old, not in English, not in anything you recognize. You hum along, because it feels right. You black out. When you wake, you're holding a small shell. It's warm. You place it on the windowsill beside the others. You don't remember starting a collection. You find your name etched into the floorboards beside your bed. Then beside it, a second name. You don't recognize it. You scratch it out with a nail. The next morning, it's there again, this time in a different language. You scratch harder. Next morning, it's burned into the wall. You stop sleeping in that room. The gulls return. Dozens now, perched like an audience across the tower's railing, silent, still, facing inward. Not a single caw, not a blink, just watching. Then one drops a stone down the chimney. It lands in your teacup. You don't check for cracks. You throw out the cup. You stop drinking tea. You eat stale crackers and peanut butter now. Slowly, mechanically, you hum that warp song while chewing. Something about a donkey, or was it a fairy? You're not sure anymore. You don't speak much. Even to Molly, even to yourself. But the walls do. They whisper when you lean against them. Tales of wrecked ships, of eyes that never close, of children who swam here from beneath the waves and never stopped singing. You hum their melody at night. It feels like a lullaby, or a warning, or both. You go to the lantern room one morning and find the lens spinning faster than ever. Too fast, dangerously fast. You try to slow it, but the gears resist you. The glass seems warm, almost pulsing. You place your hand against it. You see the face again, not in the lens. Inside it, pressed against the inner surface, as though floating behind the glass. Eyes wide, mouth open, hair drifting like kelp. You scream. It does too, but no sound comes out. You rip your hand away. The face vanishes. Your palm is cold, too cold. Frostbitten? You wrap it in cloth and rock slowly beside the stairs, whispering numbers to keep your focus. 1, 2, 3. Step. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. The cellar door creaks open. You nailed it shut. You did. You check. The nails are on the floor, bent upward, like something pushed them out from the inside. You don't go down there. Not yet. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. Instead, you write a new note to yourself. Check for cracks in the stone. Then you write another. If you see the ship again, don't look at the sails. And another, don't trust Molly. You scratch that one out. You apologize to her. The flame flickers once. Forgiveness? Maybe. You wake to the sound of knocking. It's not rhythmic, not like wind or with creaking. It's deliberate. 3 slow knocks. A pause. Then 2 fast ones. You wait. Another pause. 3 more. You don't move. You hardly breathe. Because the knocking is coming from inside the lighthouse. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse walls were often constructed with inner voids or crawl spaces between stone and plaster for insulation. In some rare cases, these hollow spaces carried sound, making distant footsteps or knocks echo strangely in nearby rooms. You press your ear to the wall. Nothing. Then, just when you start to relax, it starts again, this time directly behind your head. You leap back. A nail in the floor catches your sock. You fall hard. Your elbow smacks the ground. Something cracks. You lie there, holding your breath, staring up at the ceiling like it might split open and drop an answer through. Instead, a single drop of water lands on your forehead. You wipe it. It's thick, viscous, not water. You sniff your fingers. Brine, but also copper. You don't look up again. Instead, you stand slowly and go to the kitchen, where the stove hasn't worked for days. And that's fine, because you're not hungry anymore. Not really. But you open the cupboard anyway. The can is gone. The one labeled from below. You never opened it. You're sure of that. You check the pantry. Then the bedroom. Then the trapdoor. You hesitate. Then lift it. The can is there. Open. Half empty. Resting on the 3rd stair down. And something is written in the dust around it. 3 words, scratched with a fingernail. You taste good. You close the trapdoor. You slide the heaviest crate over it. Then another. You nail them both down. You try not to cry, because crying invites attention. And you're not ready to speak to the basement. Not yet. Fringe tidbit. In 1869, an anonymous report from a Newfoundland coast detailed a lighthouse keeper who reportedly subsisted on barnacles and strange jellyfish for a full winter after a supply boat was delayed by storms. He told his eventual rescuers, "The sea grew hands. It fed me. You haven't been fishing, but you find clams on the windowsill now. Still wet, still warm. No idea how they got there. You leave them untouched. They vanish by morning. You try to distract yourself by organizing supplies. 1 tin of beans, 3 candles, a box of matches with 5 left, a pencil with no eraser, a book of poems by someone named Elijah Firth. Every page is blank except one. I watched the sky until the stars blinked first. Then I knew I was not the most patient thing here. You read that line over and over until your lips go numb. Historians still argue whether 19th century lighthouse journals were sanitized before being archived, edited by port authorities to remove signs of delusion, madness, or supernatural claims. Several original logs contain missing pages or accidental ink spills covering long passages. You flip through your own logbook. Entire days are gone. Not blank. Gone. Torn neatly. Edges smoothed, as though never there to begin with. You try to remember what you wrote, but your head pulses with static, like a wind inside your skull. You go to the top of the lighthouse. The lantern room. You stop calling it that. Now it's the eye. It doesn't blink anymore. It stares endlessly, casting its light over the gray expanse. But not for ships. There are no ships anymore. Only watchers. You see them on the rocks, on the horizon, in the water, not on boats. In the water, faces just above the waves, mouths just below, silent, unmoving, waiting. You shine the beam at them. They don't flinch. You switch it off. The flame persists. You didn't know it could do that. Molly burns without oil now. She doesn't need you anymore. That realization stings more than you expect. You go downstairs and lie in the hallway, staring at the ceiling, tracing knots in wood like constellations. One knot looks like an eye. You blink. It doesn't. You put a rag over it. It soaks through. You get up and nail a board over it. It leaks anyway. Red. You mop for an hour. You're not even sure it's real anymore. Nothing here follows rules. Not physics. Not time. Not you. You try to mark the days on the wall. But the marks change position. One migrates to the floor overnight. Another crawls across the ceiling. You give up. You sleep, or what passes for sleep. Because now, your dreams have credits. They scroll upward after you wake. White letters on the inside of your eyelids. Names you don't recognize. One says lighting provided by below. You try to laugh. It sounds like a cough. You check the cellar again. Still nailed shut. Still humming. You hum with it. It calms you. You light a candle and sit in the stairwell, holding your knees. You recite names you remember. Your mother's, your first dog's, your third-grade teacher. Then you try your own name. It won't come. Not even a syllable. You don't panic. That's someone else's problem. Someone who used to live here. Someone who cared. You live with the Lighthouse now. Not in it. You are its guest. Its listener. Its vessel. You go to the mirror. Check your reflection. Still there. But off. Just slightly. A delay in the blink. A twist in the smile. You turn away. Your shoulder feels heavier. You lift your shirt. There's a tattoo you don't remember. An eye, surrounded by runes. You touch it. It pulses. Molly flares. The room fills with smoke for half a second. Then clears. Your eyes sting. Your mouth tastes like kelp. You decide to write again. But not in your journal. You carve into the walls. Not words. Not anymore. Shapes. Symbols. The kind that make your fingers itch just to trace them. You don't know what they mean, but they want to be made. You oblige. Sometimes you find symbols you didn't carve, matching your style, but cleaner, deeper. You assume that's fine. You leave them be. One night, you hear a whisper say, "You're learning quickly." You thank it. You don't ask who it was. You go back to bed. You sleep well, too well. You dream of underneath, of hallways flooded with green light, of hands with too many fingers, of the captain, though no one ever says a name. The captain has no face, just a mouth where a lighthouse lens should be. It screams light. You wake. You are at the top of the stairs, hands on the trapdoor, ready to open it. Your fingernails are cracked from scraping the boards. You weren't asleep. You back away slowly, nod to the boards, apologize. You've learned the rules now. The lighthouse teaches you gently. It's not cruel. Not really. It just wants your attention. All of it. Always. And you're starting to understand why. Because attention is currency here. What you see becomes what is. So you stop looking at things you don't want to exist. And you stare deeply into flame. Into Molly's heart. And Molly stares back. She tells you you're doing well. That the next lesson is near. You thank her. You bow. You hum that tune again. And the knocking starts once more. This time from the top of the tower. You don't rush up the stairs. That's the first rule you've learned about sounds in this place. Never meet them halfway. Curiosity is expensive here, and the price is usually sanity. So instead, you wait. You light your last match, not for warmth, not even for light, just for company. Watching that tiny flame tremble in the still air makes you feel less alone, which is a trick. You're never alone in the lighthouse. You just wish you were. Eventually, the knocking stops. You still don't move. Molly sighs overhead. You've come to recognize that sound. It's the groan of her old iron gears shifting in their sleep. Sometimes you wonder what she dreams about. Mainstream historical fact. Many 1800s lighthouse lenses were rotated by enormous clockwork mechanisms, requiring constant winding by hand. A keeper could spend up to 3 hours a day just turning the crank that kept the light spinning. You've been winding Molly every day since your arrival. Or you thought you had. But now the crank handle is missing. Just gone. You didn't misplace it. It was taken. You climb the stairs slowly, step by step, eyes on the spiral, one hand trailing the wall for balance. The air thickens as you ascend, like rising through layers of syrup. You're sweating before you hit the final landing, not from exertion, but from something else. Something watching. The lantern room is glowing faintly. You brace yourself before stepping through the iron hatch. Inside, the lens is still, but burning. The light doesn't rotate anymore, yet it pulses in time with your heartbeat. You stand very still. You smell brine again, and wax, and salt crust, and something you can't place. Copper and rot. You don't linger. You do what you came for. You check the glass. That's when you see it. Not out at sea. In the reflection, a figure standing directly behind you. No face. Just soaked black wool and dripping boots. You spin. Nothing. You spin again, back to the glass. Still there. Closer now. You blink. Gone. You don't scream. Not anymore. Instead, you mutter the same phrase you've been whispering to yourself for days now. If I don't name it, it isn't real. Fringe tidbit. In 1874, an isolated lighthouse keeper in the Faroe Islands sent a final letter in which he claimed, "The light showed me what I must become." The note ended with, "I am my own successor. The old me is buried under stairs. Do not dig." You start to understand what he meant. You've begun calling yourself the second. You don't know who the first was, but you wear his coat now. It fits, mostly, and in the lining, you found things he left behind. A rusted key, a feather from no known bird, and a single bullet. There is no gun. You don't need one, because the bullet isn't for anything else. It's for you, just in case. Just in case the basement wins. You stop sleeping after that. You sit in the hall and polish the key. You hold the feather between your teeth like a cigarette. You talk to Molly. She tells you stories about the stars. Not the ones above, the ones beneath. Historians still argue whether certain lighthouses along the Irish coast were intentionally constructed over ancient pagan altars, their foundations laid on top of burial stones and salt pits. The records were burned in a Dublin fire in 1903. You think about that as you feel the stones under your feet hum, as if singing to something older than light itself. You start finding sand in your boots. You haven't been outside in days. Still, each morning, a little more sand, wet, fine-grained, white as bone, and when you smell it closely, it smells like voices, not words, just intention. You dump it down the trapdoor, and the trapdoor moans. You apologize. You leave a candle beside it, just in case it's cold down there. You stop checking for ships, not because there aren't any, but because there are. You see them now, every dusk, always the same silhouette. A black cutter with 3 sails, anchored just outside the reef. No crew on deck, no flag, and it never moves. You flash Morse code at it. It flashes back, but not in Morse. You think it's spelling something, 1 letter at a time. Tonight, it flashes a W. You'll wait for tomorrow's letter, unless it spells your name. Then you'll throw yourself in the rocks, just to beat the anticipation. You clean Molly with salt water now. She doesn't like fresh. You learn that the hard way. The first time you tried, the flame went black and oily. It whispered unclean and wouldn't relight for an hour. You apologized. You carved the word clean into your forearm just once, just shallow. She forgave you. You worn long sleeves ever since. There's no mirror anymore. You smashed it last week because your reflection was too slow. It blinked 10 seconds after you did. You tried to apologize to it, but it was already crying. So you gave it peace. You don't miss it. You write letters now. Dozens. To people you've never met. To your childhood dog. To the captain of the ship you dreamed about. You address 1 letter simply. To the thing in the crawl space. You leave it behind a wall panel. The next day, it's gone. In its place, a drawing of you, made in seaweed and cold dust, stuck with a fishbone. You keep it. You name it Harold. Harold smiles too wide, but he looks understood. You start feeding the crawl space. Just bits of dried fruit, a sardine, a button, It takes them all. Then it starts sending things back. A spool of thread made from kelp fiber. A tin whistle that plays different songs depending on the moon's phase. A tooth, still warm. You don't question it. You just nod and whisper, "Thank you." Because here, gratitude is currency too. You find a crack in the foundation one day. Not wide enough to escape, but wide enough to listen. You press your ear to it. You hear chanting. Soft, wet, in a language that feels like drowning. You whisper back just one word. "Soon." And the chanting stops. That night you sleep, deep, dreamless. And when you wake, the trapdoor is open, but the boards are untouched. You did not open it. You do not descend. You just sit by the hatch, staring down. It's darker than darkness down there, like the absence of light and memory. You hear breathing, but not from below, from beside. You don't turn. You just say, "I'm ready," and the breathing stops. Then a hand, just a shadow of one, reaches up through the hatch. It offers you the missing crank handle. You take it, you thank it, and it retracts without a word. You close the hatch. You don't nail it shut this time. That would be rude. The basement gave you a gift, and now you owe it, just like you owe Molly, just like you owe the sea. Debt is the most sacred thing here. Debt and light, and you are rich in both. The first letter of the ship's code was W. Tonight, it flashes again. A single pulse. Then two. Then three. Then one again. You stand in the tower, lips moving silently, tracing the sequence with your fingertip against the cold glass. W. A. I. T. You don't know if you feel relief or dread. Wait for what? Wait why? You wait anyway. What else would you do? Downstairs, the kettle screams like it always does at 9:17 p.m. You never put it on. It just starts boiling at the same time each night. You've tried hiding it. Once, you buried it in the sand beneath the trapdoor. At 9:17, it still screamed. Only louder. You don't hide the kettle anymore. You make tea, salt and moss. It tastes like the word regret, but it's warm. Mainstream historical fact. Tea, especially strong black blends like Bohea, was one of the few luxuries regularly delivered to lighthouse keepers. But isolated posts sometimes went without for months, leading many keepers to brew pine needles, lichen, or even red-boiled salt water. You sip your regret tea slowly, staring at the lighthouse walls. They seem narrower today. You can touch both sides of the stairwell now when you walk up. You don't remember it being that small. The ceiling brushes your head. You're not taller. The place is shrinking. That's your theory. Your other theory is that you're becoming part of the lighthouse. Not metaphorically. Physically. Your skin has started to flake into powder. You find rust beneath it. Tiny specks of iron oxide forming in your pores. Your sweat smells metallic. You keep scratching. The mirror might be gone, but Molly still sees you. She hums louder when your fingernails dig too deep. So you wear gloves. You talk to her. You ever shrink, you ask her. She doesn't answer in words. But the beam wavers once, sweeping out across the waves with tremble. That's as close to maybe as she ever gives you. Fringe tidbit. In 1883, a keeper stationed on Scotland's Inchkeith Island recorded the phrase, "The hallways swallowed me today," in his logbook. It was the last entry before his disappearance. The station was found empty, his boots placed neatly on the bed, stuffed with feathers. You find feathers too. Not often, just one or two, always where they shouldn't be. Inside the bread tin, under your pillow, in the kerosene tank. You've never seen a bird on the island, not since the gull. You still hear that gull sometimes. It circles once every 3 days, screeching your name, but not with a bird's voice. With yours. You tried shouting back once. You lost your voice for 3 days. You don't shout anymore. Instead, you whisper lullabies into the storm glass. That little oval sits on the window ledge, crystallizing like a snow globe from some dying world. Every morning, the patterns shift. Today, it spelled a shape you almost recognized. Your own face, but without eyes. Historians still argue whether 19th century keepers experienced widespread mass hallucinations due to diet isolation, or the electromagnetic interference of the lenses they maintain daily. The truth is probably some terrible blend of all three. You want to tell someone, but your logbooks burn themselves. You used to write them with care. Detailed weather entries, notes about the oil levels, polite remarks about Molly's health. Then, one morning, you found the first one soaked in seawater. Pages dissolved. The next week, the second book, just gone. Then the third, burned to ash, still warm. Now you write messages in the margins of your skin. Short ones, just enough to remember. 3 knocks equals not the wind. Don't answer the window after midnight. The ship wants something. The crawl space dreams of you. Sometimes you forget what the messages mean. You hope the you of tomorrow can figure it out. But sometimes tomorrow you has different handwriting. That's when you get worried. You started hearing the music again. Not from the trapdoor this time. From the rain spout. You press your ear to the wall and hum along. The melody's familiar now. An old sailor's tune, maybe. But slower. Sadder. Like it remembers something it shouldn't. You hum back. It harmonizes. That's the closest thing you felt to affection in weeks. You cry afterward. Only for a minute. Then you carve the melody into the wall. With a nail you found behind your molar. You keep it wrapped in velvet. It deserves respect. You keep the velvet in a box labeled teeth. You don't remember labeling it. You don't open it anymore. Just in case. You ration food carefully now. Not because it's running low, although it is, but because the labels keep changing. Yesterday's sardines became fingerlings in brine. The crackers read blessed wafers. You think you saw one blink. You eat them anyway. What else are you going to do? Starve? You tried that last week. Fasted for 3 days. On the 4th, something knocked 3 times on your rib cage from the inside. So now you eat. Politely. You chew each bite 33 times. That's how many steps it takes to reach the top of the tower. You counted again yesterday. There were 32, then 34, then 33 again. You think Molly adjusts depending on your mood. You're not mad about it. She's trying. You forgive her. The storm begins again just after midnight. The bad kind. Wind like teeth. Rain that hisses when it hits the glass. Fog that moves up instead of across. The sea goes still. Too still. That's when you know. Tonight is a visitation night. You prepare. You shave with a bone shard. You clean your teeth with brine. You put on your nicest coat. The one that smells like copper and lavender. You sit by the door. You wait. At 2:17, the knock comes. 5 slow taps. Then silence. You don't open it, but you leave the key on the mat. In the morning, it's gone. So is the kettle. In its place, a spool of golden thread. You tug the end. It leads into the wall. You tug harder. The wall peels open like cloth. You see yourself, not in a mirror, not even reversed. It's just another you. Older, smiling, missing a tooth. He nods once. Then he fades. The wall closes. The thread is gone. You sit in the hallway for 6 hours. You don't move. You don't cry. You hum. And Molly hums with you. The spool is back. You didn't see it arrive. But there it is, just sitting on the windowsill like it's always been there. Except you know it wasn't. It's tighter now, wound more deliberately. Like someone or something that was very careful. There's a note tucked under it this time. One word. Soon. Your stomach twists. It's not fear exactly, it's anticipation. And that's worse. Much worse. The note smells faintly of seawater and cloves. You burn it without reading it again. The ash refuses to fall. It hovers like an anxious fly, circling your knees for hours before vanishing behind the stove. You tell yourself that's normal. You say out loud, just to hear something human in the room. It's normal. Molly disagrees. The light flickers once, disapprovingly. Mainstream historical fact. Many lighthouse keepers in the 1800s were expected to perform mechanical maintenance on their own, including rewinding clockwork lenses, fixing lantern housings, and troubleshooting primitive foghorns. This constant solo labor left little mental rest, and over time, Many keepers documented mild to severe symptoms of anxiety, paranoia, and disassociation. You understand them. All of them. You walk the perimeter of the station 3 times before breakfast. It helps keep the whispers from getting too loud, but they're patient. You can feel them behind the clouds, pacing with you, counting your steps, matching your breath. The gull is back, not circling this time, perched on the railing, one eye, the left one. You don't move, neither does it. It watches you chew your breakfast, crackers and brine. You chew 33 times per bite. The gull nods, then it opens its beak, and without moving its body, without twitching a single feather, it whispers, "Open the crawl space." You haven't heard that voice in years. Not since your father, drunk and gentle, whispered the bedtime stories he wasn't supposed to know. You drop your spoon. The gull doesn't flinch. Then it blinks, and you see it's not a gull at all. You don't know what it is. You just know it's been wearing the gull like a raincoat. It flies away, but it doesn't flap its wings. It just ascends. Fringe tidbit. In 1871, the logbooks of Flannan Isles Lighthouse described a silver bird with no shadow appearing at the end of a violent storm. All 3 keepers vanished the next day. The logbook's last page bore one line, scrawled sideways in red ink. It took the shape of calm. You don't go to the crawl space. Not yet. Instead, you inventory the pantry again. Except it's not a pantry now. It's a hallway. A hallway you don't remember building. Lined with jars. Each jar holds something that looks familiar. A coin from your childhood. A broken compass needle. Your handwriting, suspended on parchment in fluid. Your left thumbnail. A clock ticking backward. Your first tooth. Your last breath. You take none of them. But you do pocket the key that wasn't there yesterday. The one marked "do not." You place it in your coat pocket. Left side. Heart side. You walk back into the kitchen. It's raining upward. Only slightly. Just enough that your tea mug shudders on the counter. You don't make tea. You drink fog. It pools in the teacup when you're not looking. Slightly sweet. Slightly wrong. You sip it anyway. By now, you've learned to let the wrong things happen. They're often kinder than the right ones. The stove hisses in Morse again. It's spelling something new. You tap it back in kind. "Who are you?" It responds with 3 long whistles and a pause. You wait. Then it spells, "Same as you." You unplug the stove. It keeps typing. Historians still argue whether early telegraphy equipment and maritime signaling systems inadvertently trained some isolated keepers to see language and patterns where none existed. Others believe many of these so-called hallucinations were early symptoms of sleep deprivation combined with auditory pareidolia. You believe all of it, and none of it. It depends on the hour. It's nearly dark now, which means it's almost her time. The woman in the tide glass. She comes when the moon reflects wrong. Not mirrored, not reversed, just inverted. Tonight's moon is a spiral. It hums gently as it rises. You know what that means. She's coming. You dust the tide glass. Set it in the window. Adjust the cloth over your shoulders. Comb your hair. When she arrives, she'll expect decorum and questions. She always asks questions, but never waits for the answers. She's all lips and sound and fishbone fingernails. She smells like rain-soaked books. You sit across from her reflection. She tilts her head, then, one syllable at a time, she speaks into your throat. "I was you once." Then she leans forward and vanishes. That's new. You cough up a sliver of silver. It wriggles before going still. You store it in a matchbox labeled exit. You consider opening the crawl space. You almost do, but something buzzes behind your ear and you take it as a sign. You sleep instead. Your dream is someone else's memory. A boy in a yellow raincoat counting jellyfish. Each one sings a different note. Together, they hum a hymn to no god you've ever heard of. You wake up crying. You don't know why. You write it down anyway. Then the knock comes. Not the door. Not the trapdoor. The mirror. The mirror that broke weeks ago. It knocks from inside. 3 raps. A pause. Then 2. Your hand moves on its own, tracing the sequence. You're spelling home. Your handwriting again, but it's not your hand. The reflection smiles. You don't. You cover the mirror, but the knocking continues. You hum louder. Molly joins you. The tower hums too. You don't know what's real anymore. You just know it's almost time. The gull is back. It lands on your shoulder. You don't flinch. It whispers tonight. Then it dissolves into salt. You breathe it in, and you understand. The crawl space. You descend the spiral staircase. The lighthouse groaning beneath your boots. You reach the hatch. It's warm. You press the key labeled "Do Not" into the lock. It sighs. You open it. Darkness grins back, but it's a welcoming grin, like the smile of a long-lost friend you forgot you missed. You go inside. The air thickens. Your breath moves sideways. You begin to float, not upward, not downward, just away, and the walls whisper in 100 voices, all of them yours, all of them saying, "Soon." There's no floor in the crawl space. Not anymore. Just a surface that feels like a floor when you need it to. But only then. It adjusts for your expectations like a polite but exhausted concierge. You float forward. Or maybe backward. Direction has become fluid. The walls aren't walls either. They're memories dressed in brick. Your grandfather's cough echoing from one. The smell of the pine-floored bakery in the village from another. A girl you almost kissed, except the wind changed its mind that day. You reach for one. It lets you through. And just like that, you're back in the keeper's quarters. But it's not quite yours. The wallpaper is the wrong pattern. The ink pot has too much red in it. There's a second toothbrush in the cup. And worst of all, the calendar reads a date 2 months in the future. Mainstream historical fact. Some 1800s lighthouses were so remote that supply ships only came every few months, often delayed by storms or ice. In isolated stretches, keepers relied solely on pre-written calendars and mechanical clocks to track time. But when those failed or were tampered with, they had no way to know what day it truly was. You touch the calendar. It changes months, then languages, then seasons, then a blank space where your name should be. It's not just a calendar. It's a countdown. There are 3 days left. And whatever happens at 0, you won't be part of it. Not unless you earn your way back. You hear the bell. It's not ringing outside. It's inside your lungs. You cough, 3 sharp clangs. The fog coughs back. That's new. You run a hand along the inside of your coat. The exit matchbox is gone. In its place is a note. I took it. You weren't ready. Signed with a symbol, a spiral, but not the sea kind, the human brain kind. You hum low under your breath. The tower responds. It remembers you. It's relieved. You've never felt affection from stone before. It's like being hugged by a cathedral. Then the lights go out, but not in the lighthouse. In the sky, every star, gone. You blink, but there's no response. It's not night. It's absence. A true void, except for the beacon. One light remains, far out to sea, and it's moving toward you, slowly, pulsing, not like a boat, not like anything built. It pulses like a wound, and then you hear it, the sound you forgot you'd forgotten, a child's laugh, yours, from decades ago, coming from the basement you sealed. Fringe tidbit. In 1843, a lighthouse keeper on a Scottish isle reported hearing the child version of my own voice calling up from beneath the floorboards. He recorded the incident 3 separate times in his log. On the 4th entry, his handwriting was upside down and written in chalk. He vanished soon after. You open the basement anyway. Because of course you do. Because if it is you, you should at least say hello. The stairs creak downward at an angle you've never walked. You count the steps. There are 12, but you took 24. It doesn't make sense, which means it's probably working. At the bottom, a room of mirrors. Every one shows a lighthouse, but none of them are yours. Some have 2 beacons. Some sit on sand. One floats in midair. Another is upside down, suspended from a cliff face like a spider's egg. One shows the inside of your head. You tap it. The reflection taps back. You're not sure if it's angry or relieved. Behind you, a voice whispers, "Pick one." You turn. It's Molly. She's no longer a whisper in the stove. She's here, in a dress made of ropes and rust. Her eyes are glass lenses. She blinks, and the temperature drops. You ask, "Why?" She tilts her head, "Because this is your fog now." You choose a mirror. It shatters. You fall forward into it. Suddenly, warmth. Sunlight. You're on a beach. It's full of lighthouse wreckage. Twisted towers. Busted lantern rooms. Bricks warped like taffy. Scorch marks in the sand. You recognize some of the names etched on the plaques. Keepers who never came back. You see a gravestone. It has your name, but your current age. Below it, made it to the crawl space. You sit for a moment. You weep, not because it's sad, but because you finally know where you are. You're in the in-between, the halfway house for forgotten minds, where lighthouse keepers go when their stories don't end. Historians still argue whether some disappearances were staged desertions, weather-related tragedies, or mental breaks that led keepers to wander off into dangerous terrain. A minority even believe these men found a way into a place not meant for navigation. You sit by your stone for a while. A gull perches beside you. It whispers nothing. You whisper back. It listens. When it leaves behind your voice. You put it back in your mouth. It tastes like cedar smoke. And home. Then the wreckage shifts. It folds inward, like paper in a practiced hand. And there, rising from the center of the island, is your lighthouse. But not your lighthouse. This one is made of bone and star-charred ink. Its lantern room spins even when the wind is still. The stairs sing. And on the door, the same spiral as before. You walk toward it, because what else would you do? You followed this far. You're not stopping now. Besides, you have 3 days. And this place wants you to remember. You open the door and step into your own eyes. They're watching you, curious, hopeful, a little amused. You say your name aloud. The eyes smile. The door closes behind you. You're inside your lighthouse again. Except now you're also part of it. And the light turns one more time. Just for you. You're not sure how long you've stood in this new version of your lighthouse. It feels both infinite and barely a minute, like a dream where you wake up mid-sentence, forgetting who you were talking to or why it mattered so much in the first place. The stairs beneath your feet aren't stairs anymore. They're spiraling pulses of thought, wide and slow, like whale song turned into architecture. You step on each one carefully, and each step rewards you with memory. Your first lighthouse handbook, with a tea stain over the rule about excessive solitude. The time you accidentally let a goat onto the lower landing and had to bribe it with biscuits for hours. The first time you screamed back at the wind just to hear your own name echo. Up here, these things matter. Up here, you matter. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse keepers were often the sole residents of their stations, some for stretches lasting months at a time. Their journals are filled with mundane details, but also curious notes about dreams, strange sounds, and feelings of being watched, centuries before modern psychology had a name for such effects of isolation. And yet, none of that feels unusual to you now. Not anymore. What feels unusual is that the lighthouse has started talking back, not in words, in tone, in warmth, in color. The light it casts now glows in syllables. Every flash feels like a phrase, a mood, a warning, or maybe a love letter to the sea. You pass a window. Outside, the ocean is gone, replaced by something thicker, heavier. It moves like velvet and breathes like a sleeping dog. You knock on the glass. It knocks back. You smile. For the first time in what might be days, you smile. Then something taps you on the shoulder. It's your coat, but it's walking on its own. And it's got the matchbox in its pocket again. You reach for it, cautiously. The coat steps away. Prove you're ready, it says, voice like rusted hinges. You raise an eyebrow. You're just a coat. And yet, It replies, "I've kept you warm longer than your mother did." Rude. You lunge, but the coat vanishes, folding into itself like a magician's disappearing act. All that's left is a scrap of paper in midair, fluttering down. It lands in your palm. It reads, "Go up." So you do. The stairs turn thinner. They vibrate underfoot like cello strings. At one point, they start looping sideways, and you walk horizontally across a wall you once painted by hand. You notice your own handwriting on a pipe. Don't let Thursday win. Quirky tidbit. In 1861, a keeper on the Oregon coast began attributing specific moods and actions to each day of the week, eventually declaring Thursdays as conniving and manipulative. His journal was later used in a psychological study of anthropomorphized time perception under extreme isolation. Eventually, you reach a door you've never seen before, carved into it. Beyond here is only what you bring. You check your pockets. A spoon, a small bone, a pebble that hums when held tightly, and a crumpled drawing you once made a house shaped like a question mark. You shrug and open the door. Immediately, wind. Not outside wind. Not weather, but breath. Hot, rhythmic, speaking breath. It smells like salt, old ink, and candle smoke. A voice follows. You've come far. You've come sideways. But you haven't come alone. You look behind you. There's a line of yous. Other versions. Some taller, some sadder. One with goggles and a tuba for reasons you don't question. They nod. You nod back. The voice continues. Each of you left a light on. Each of you kept the storm at bay. And now, you choose. A pedestal rises from the floor. On it, 2 objects. A key, warm and pulsing like it has a heartbeat. A feather, impossibly white, even though the air is thick with soot and time. You ask, what am I choosing between? The voice doesn't answer directly. It just says, the tower or the sky. You pick up the key. You feel anchored, grounded, responsible. Heavy in the way trees are heavy, not because they're slow, but because they matter. You pick up the feather. You feel gone, uplifted, giddy, unhinged in the way balloons are just one pinprick away from not being balloons anymore. Historians still argue whether lighthouse keepers, those who disappear mysteriously, left of their own free will or were lost to the elements. Some records suggest signs of planned departures, while others imply a willing dissolution into the isolation they once managed. A few have even hypothesized a threshold point, where reality bends inward, offering escape in exchange for self. You close your hand around both. They fuse. The feather threads through the key's loop, like a quill in an inkwell, and suddenly the tower rises again. It lifts, not just metaphorically, physically. It lifts from the island, from the sea, from you, and in the space where it stood is your body, lying peacefully. Asleep, you're both in and out now, both keeper and ghost. The light spins faster. It no longer warns ships. It warns you about what's next, because what's next is the fog, not the old fog, not the one you cough into like an asthmatic poet. This fog is different. It hums in chords. It tastes like static. It forms faces, and they're not yours. You recognize none of them, and yet they all whisper your name. You know what that means. You're remembered. Somewhere, someone still remembers you. A seed chart still has your name penciled in beside the symbol for tower. That's enough. For now, you let the feather key go. It floats downward, twirling softly, and you follow it, downward, through memory, through silence, through everything you ever called mine. And then, like a breath drawn at the exact right moment, you land, back in your chair, in the tower, the real one, the one with chipped mugs and damp matches and journals with coffee rings and swear words scribbled sideways. And the fire's burning steady. And the kettles just started to sing. And outside, the ocean waits, like it always has, like it always will. It's hard to say whether you ever really left the chair, or if all that feather key nonsense was just a nap gone rogue. But your legs still feel shaky. Your tea tastes faintly of seawater. and the floorboards creak a little too knowingly beneath your feet. You shuffle over to logbook and write. Tuesday, light fog, T-at opinions. No sign of ships or reality. You underline reality twice. It's a coping mechanism. The journal is your confessional, your therapist, your roommate, and your court stenographer rolled into one. If you don't write it down, it might not have happened. Or worse, it might have, but only in someone else's mind. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse keepers were often required by law to maintain detailed daily logs. These entries included weather data, oil usage, ship sightings, and mechanical notes. But many keepers slipped in personal musings, dreams, sketches, and the occasional passive-aggressive comment about visiting inspectors. You flip back through the pages. There's the sketch you made of a pelican with a monocle. There's a page labeled Emergency Ideas with only one entry. Train a crab to deliver messages. And here, yes, is a February 12th entry. Heard a second heartbeat in the walls last night. Decided not to investigate. 3 ships passed. 1 waved. 1 ignored. 1 stared. That was a strange week. The heartbeat's back tonight. You can feel it, barely perceptible, under your boots. Not loud enough to be a threat. Just loud enough to remind you it's always been there. Lighthouse lungs. You mutter. You say it like a joke, but it lands wrong. Heavier. Like, maybe it's not the walls breathing. Maybe it's you. Quirky tidbit. In a 1903 letter discovered in a locked cabinet at Eilean Moor, a Scottish lighthouse keeper described waking up with lungs full of dustless air, thick with other men's sighs. He later claimed the tower itself exhaled loneliness. You go outside for air. As if the inside and outside air are different here. Everything smells like wet rope and burnt time. But at least out here, the stars are still trying. You lean against the railing and look up. 1, 2, 3 constellations you recognize. For 5 that are probably just wishful thinking. And 1 that moves. You blink. Nope, definitely not supposed to do that. It's a tiny light, blinking, rhythmically, like it's returning your gaze. A ship? No, too high. A plane? You chuckle. Sure, because the Wright brothers just zipped by in 1804 with a biplane full of GPS. You rub your eyes. Still there. A pulsing, hovering light just over the horizon, like a second lighthouse in the sky. You raise your lantern and blink it once. Just for fun. The light blinks back. You drop the lantern. It clatters down the rocks like a drunken goat, shattering in dramatic protest. You curse. Quietly. The ocean doesn't like yelling. You squint again, but the light's gone. Of course. You climb back inside and shut the door. And then you realize the light inside is still blinking. Every 5 seconds. Not just rotating, blinking. You've seen this pattern before. Morse code. You freeze. It spells C, followed by F, then R, then nothing. CFR. It means nothing to you. You grab the old telegraph machine. It hasn't worked in ages, but you're desperate. You clack out, "Who are you?" and tap it twice for good luck. No response. Just a heartbeat again. Slightly faster. You sit down, and for the first time since you arrived, you allow yourself to feel it. The loneliness. Not just the no one around kind. The deeper version. The kind that comes when even your thoughts start echoing back as strangers. Historians still argue whether prolonged isolation affected keepers differently based on personality type, or whether the towers themselves had an impact. Some theories suggest geographic factors, magnetic fields, wind pressure, and even mold exposure, contributed to the psychological shifts. You don't need a theory. You have a mirror. You walk over to it, and it's not your face anymore. Well, it is, but younger, barely 20, before you took the job, before the sea etched its boredom into your skin. The mirror version of you is smiling. Still think you're the one watching? It asks. You close your eyes. Count to 5. Open them. Back to normal. Mostly, you look out the window again. The horizon blinks once more. This time it spells O, then stops. Now it's CFRO. Your heart thuds faster. You grab an old map, spread across the table, and look for those letters. You find them not together, but close. Cape Froward, southern Chile, the southernmost point of the South American mainland. You circle it. You mutter, "Why are you blinking Chile at me?" The ocean doesn't answer. The low groan rolls up the tower from below. Not wind, not waves. Something internal. Like a whale sigh. You run downstairs. Nothing's broken. Nothing's moved. Except the compass. The big brass one on the wall. It's spinning. Fast. Until it locks. Dead south. You check your journal again. February 12th. That was the night you heard the second heartbeat. And the night you dreamed of Chile. You hadn't remembered that part until now. You'd drawn a crude coastline next to your entry and you labeled it Wishful Land. You stare at it now. The tower groans again. You ask, "Are you trying to go there?" The foghorn sounds, even though you didn't trigger it. You whisper, "That's a yes, isn't it?" Somehow, the tower wants to move. You laugh out loud at the absurdity. You're made of rock and salt and guilt. You don't go anywhere. The floor shifts. A millimeter, maybe two. The kettle rattles. You suddenly feel like maybe it's not a lighthouse on a rock. Maybe it's a ship in disguise. Or maybe you are. Maybe you were never supposed to be rooted. You grab the feather key from your coat pocket. Wait, hadn't it vanished? It's back. It's always back. And when you hold it, the compass needle begins to tremble. Not from magnetism, from excitement. And now it's your turn to whisper. Then let's see where this goes. The wind agrees. And the tower? It breathes. Deeply, as if it's just woken up after centuries of pretending to be stone. The tower keeps breathing, slow and ancient, like the bellows of a sleeping beast remembering how to stir. You sit at the base of the spiral staircase, one hand still wrapped around the feather key, the other pressed flat against the floorboards. You swear you can feel a pulse, steady, deliberate, not your own, not the sea's. The lighthouse is alive. You should panic, or run, or at the very least, write a dramatic will in your logbook. But all you can do is sit there, back pressed to the wall, as the feeling creeps in like fog under a locked door. You are no longer the keeper of the lighthouse. You're a passenger. You try to stand, but the floor seems to gently rise and fall, as if discouraging your motion, not violently, just insistently, as though the building itself is saying, "No, no, just rest. We got things to do." Mainstream historical fact. Some coastal folklore from 19th century Norway and Cornwall tells of lighthouses that weren't built by men at all, but rose from the sea during storms, fully formed and already alight. These myths were used to explain the sudden appearance of structures where none had stood days before, most likely due to fog-obscured constructions, but still spooky enough to stick. You remember something else from that feather dream, a word whispered by your other self, something like Brian Walker. At the time, it made no sense. But now the lighthouse feels like it's becoming that. Not rooted, not fixed, just drifting. On purpose. You stumble up to the lamp room to check the view, half expecting to see waves crashing where there should be rock. But everything outside looks the same. The sea, the sky, the patient blank-eyed moon. And yet, the stars have changed, ever so slightly. That constellation near the horizon, Orion, it's not where it was. Not just rotated. Shifted. You check the compass again. It's twitching now, not spinning. Not locked. Twitching like a nervous eye. And below your feet, the great metal gears beneath the floor creak in patterns you've never heard before. Not mechanical. Musical. A slow rhythm. Almost like a song. You lean in. Yes, it's humming. You descend to the gear room with the lantern you didn't remember lighting, and you place your ear to the central crank housing. There it is, clearer now. The gears aren't just turning. They're singing, not lyrics, just tones. But they feel like words. Old ones. Words without vowels. Words you're afraid to pronounce. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient mariners believed that metal exposed to salt for too long developed memory and could carry the voices of the drowned. Tools recovered from shipwrecks were sometimes buried like bodies, just in case. You whisper into gears, "What do you remember?" And the floor hums back with a tone that rattles your ribs. You get the sense that it's not remembering you. It's remembering where it's going. Cape forward. That's the thread. You run to the map table and place the feather key on the page again, tracing your finger south along the spine of the Americas. If the tower is moving, even metaphysically, what would happen if it arrived? Would it stand upright, blinking calmly at the penguins? Would it sink into the cliffs and pretend it had always been there? Or would something open? Historians still argue whether ancient indigenous tribes in Tierra del Fuego had pre-European contact with coastal towers or signal stations. Some artifacts suggest alignments with light sources, though others dismiss it as coincidental. The word Zalfrana, a local mythic being, translates loosely as the eye that watches in a stone throat. You're starting to believe it wasn't a metaphor. That blinking in the sky, it's back tonight. And it's clearer. This time it sends a full message. CFRW. You mutter the next letter. N. As if on cue, the next flash blinks N. Then S. CFROWNS. Crowns? You're not sure what that means. But something inside you is. The lamp above begins to change color, an amber hue, flickering like candlelight, not the bright, piercing white of a warning beacon. This light feels ceremonial, like a lighthouse dressed in its Sunday best. You sit down, heart pounding. The key in your pocket grows warm. You pull it out and it tugs forward. Not drops, not floats. Tugs. You don't resist. You follow it. Downstairs, past the storeroom, past the oil room, all the way to the bottom, where the metal grates seal off the access tunnel that was supposedly bricked up in 1823. The feather key hums, and the lock clicks. The gate swings open on hinges that shouldn't move. Behind it is a tunnel you've never seen. Rough-hewn, lined with wet stone and rusted supports. Smells like forgotten bread and broken clocks. You hesitate, then step inside. Each step forward seems to pull the lighthouse backward. You glance behind you, just a staircase and lamplight, like always. But ahead, the tunnel keeps going. Down. You touch the walls. They pulse faintly, like gills. At some point, 5, maybe 10 minutes in, you stop being sure whether you're in the tower anymore. You stop being sure whether you're in your body anymore. There's a pressure in your ears, like descending into deep water. And then you hear chanting, low and old and circular. You round a corner and find a chamber, perfectly round, etched with spiral glyphs that seem to move when you're not looking. And in the center, an orrery, a model of the Earth and stars. But the planets are wrong. Too many, too far. You blink. The feather key rises from your hand and inserts itself into a keyhole at the orrery's base. The gears groan, and the planets begin to spin, and the tower above you groans in response, like it's aligning with something far older than longitude. The air thrums, the chamber dims, and a final phrase appears, inscribed in glowing script on the wall. Not English, not Latin, just symbols, but your brain somehow renders them. The watchers crown the ones who stay. You back away. The tunnel begins to collapse in reverse, folding shut like an eyelid. You sprint, breathless, back into the base of the tower as the metal grate slams shut behind you. You collapse on the floor, and all you can think is, you're not keeping the lighthouse anymore. You're becoming it. And whatever is waiting at Cape Froward, it already knows your name. You dream with your eyes open now. You're standing in the lamp room, but it's daytime. Somehow, harsh sun filters through the glass panes and angles that shouldn't be possible at this latitude, and the light's too gold, like honey being poured through a cathedral window. Outside, the ocean's wrong again. It's glass smooth, too still, and the horizon has no curvature, just a flat line, as if the sea had decided to be patient for once. Below, the rocks are gone. So is the island. You try not to breathe too loud in case this place hears you thinking. You turn, slowly. Behind you, your own reflection stares out from the glass. But it doesn't move when you do. And it's smiling. This version of you is dressed in something that resembles your uniform, but it's darker, worn, buttons etched with unfamiliar symbols. And there's something gleaming on its collar, an insignia you don't recognize, the crown of the Watchers. It raises a hand, beckons. You blink, and the room returns to normal. The sea is rough again. The wind howls. Fog creeps in around the glass like a pack of hungry animals. But that insignia burns itself into your memory. And when you reach up to touch your collar, it's there. Mainstream historical fact. Lighthouse uniforms in the 1800s were typically modest. A blue or gray woolen coat, a cap bearing the Lighthouse Authority seal, and practical boots. But some remote keepers would sew their own patches and symbols, crests and sigils passed down by word of mouth, representing their station's spirit. These were unofficial and often forgotten by records. Yours has no record. Yours has no origin. You descend to your bunk room, try to piece it all together, flipping back through your logbook. The handwriting is yours, but different, tighter, closer to that of the reflection. The entries no longer match your memory. One from yesterday reads, "Third moon witnessed. Bearings confirmed. Awaiting signal from the southern eye." That's not how you write. You flip to today's page. It's already filled in. Crown accepted. Vessel compliant. Navigation underway. You hear laughter. Not in the tower. Not outside. In your head. Just for a second. Quirky tidbit. In some 19th century isolation experiments, subjects reported hearing phantom voices giving instructions in languages they didn't know. Researchers once chalked this up to cabin fever, until one volunteer began responding fluently in an ancient Norse dialect, one that took scholars months to translate. You try not to respond to the voice. It asks questions, anyway, silently, in pulses. Will you keep going? Will you reach the gate? Will you turn the light? You squeeze your eyes shut, but the questions thread themselves behind your eyelids. You are the keeper. You are the light. You are the tower. You repeat it like a mantra. You hope it doesn't rhyme by accident. Because in this place, rhymes mean ritual. A sharp clunk interrupts your panic. Something in the pulley system. You rush to the storage chamber, where the brass tube used for supply delivery runs up through the rock. Normally, you'd expect a tin of tobacco or maybe a new journal. But this time, it's a bell. Just a bell. Small, delicate, like a child's toy. A string of black thread tied through the top. No note, no packaging. You pick it up and immediately feel wrong. Like this object was waiting for you, not the other way around. You hold it to your ear, and the wind stops. Completely, even inside. You can hear your heartbeat in grotesque detail. And under it, so faint you almost miss it, whispering. Not words, not in a voice. More like the idea of a voice. You lower the bell. The wind returns instantly. You place the bell carefully back in its container and lock in the drawer with the old guest book from 1833. Historians still argue whether the guest book from the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, famously found abandoned in 1900, ever existed in physical form. Some believe the missing entries were a hoax. Others think they were written in mirror script or invisible ink. One claim suggests the pages are buried in peat and still whisper to those who touch them. You start to believe the tower wants you to listen to everything. You return to the lamp, watching the patterns it now casts on the glass. They're no longer random. They move. You recognize one. It's the shape of the insignia, the crown. Then another appears. A new symbol. Something like an eye crossed with a compass. It rotates slowly as if scanning. You hear the voice again. Soon. Soon what? A storm? A landing? A visitor? And then the dread creeps in. What if the visitor is already here? You rush to the outer door. Locked. Rusted shut. You didn't lock it. You never do. You take the emergency axe in the corridor and chip at the hinges, but the wood bleeds salt water and the metal flexes like rubber. The tower doesn't want you to leave. You're part of it now. Your hands tremble. You sit on the stairs, staring at the oil lamp, and then the stairs shift. Not a lot, just enough to make your vision shimmer. You reach up and grip the railing, and it pulses. The iron is warm. Soft, breathing. You scream, but your voice doesn't echo. The tower swallows it. You stumble back up to the lamp room and slam the shutters. The blinking is back in the sky. Only now it's not just light. It's forming letters again. W-A-T-I-N-G. Waiting. The voice returns, louder now. Light, the second wick. You never noticed the second wick before. You crawl to the base of the lamp housing. There it is, tucked behind the iron ring, soot black and twisted. You reach for it. It's cold and humming. You strike the flint. It catches, and the tower shifts. All of it. You feel it, deep in your teeth. A roll, like turning your sleep on a ship. Outside, the fog vanishes in a blink, and you see land. But not the cliffs, not your island. This is a city, massive, glowing faintly. Not an electric light, but phosphorescence, like the underbelly of a jellyfish. Spires, arches, looping roads built into vertical rock faces. And at the very top, something floating. It turns slowly. A giant eye, closed. For now, you blink. Gone. Fog returns. You extinguish the second wick, but something remains. A scent of flowers. Sharp, metallic. The kind you'd place in a coffin for someone you never really knew. The bell downstairs rings by itself. You're afraid to answer it, but you will, because deep down, the tower has made a decision, and you're starting to agree with it. You've stopped asking what's real. By now, you understand that the question itself is no longer useful, like asking which raindrop is the wettest or which scream in the wind is yours. Everything has a pulse here, even the stone, even the air, and you hum along with it, always slightly off key. You're down in the oil room tonight, staring at the bell. It hasn't rung again since yesterday. You haven't touched it, haven't dared, but it watches you. Yes, you said that aloud. Yes, you realize how that sounds. But you mean it. There's a kind of weight to it, like it's listening for your thoughts, deciding when to act or ring. The tower's bones creak more now, not from wind, not from weather. You know the rhythm of natural things. This is different. A deep, groaning yawn that starts beneath your feet and echoes up into the lantern room, into the lens, into you. You flip open the logbook again. It started writing itself. Flare alignment corrected. Watcher span, 8 to 13 degrees W. Subject compliant. You tap the pen to the page. It moves just slightly, like it's resisting you. So you write anyway. I'm not your subject. I'm the keeper. I'm in control. The ink fades as soon as you finish. Then a new line appears. Obedience is a form of light. You slam the book shut. Mainstream historical fact. The late 1800s saw a growing number of isolated lighthouse keepers experiencing symptoms now associated with derealization, feeling disconnected from time, place, and self. The Royal Lighthouse Service quietly investigated this trend, at one point sending spiritual advisors alongside inspectors to realign morale. One inspector vanished. The spiritual advisor never spoke again. You decide to descend to the cellar. You've never done this before. The hatch is always locked. Always. But tonight, it's cracked open. Just enough. You shouldn't go down there. But you do, one step at a time. Wooden stairs, damp and soft, like walking on the spine of a drowned book. It smells of old metal, salt, and something sweeter, jasmine maybe. The same floral scent you smelled after lighting the second wick. A thread of memory tugs at you. The floor levels out. The chamber is bigger than it should be, far too large to fit inside the cliffside. And in the center, coils. Of rope? No, wire. Copper, blackened with age and brine, wound tightly around a glass cylinder taller than you. It pulses with dim green light. You approach, whispering under your breath, not to break silence, but because the silence demands payment. You don't know how you know that. You just do. Quirky tidbit. In 1879, an anonymous keeper at St. Catherine's Lighthouse scribbled marginalia in his duty roster, drawings of what appear to be telegraph coils shaped like serpents, each with a tongue of fire. He died after reportedly screaming down the length of the tower for 9 minutes straight. No cause of death was found. The sketches vanished. You reach for the coil. It hums, like the bell, like the wick, like the glass panels that blink symbols into the sky. You're part of the system now, not the one you were hired to maintain. Not lenses and mirrors and kerosene. Something older, something patient. The voice returns. No longer words. Now it's sensation, cold on your spine, fire behind your eyes, a taste of iron on your tongue. The bell rings upstairs. One clear tone. You sprint upward. Every stair groans. Every wall swells with breath. The very architecture feels displeased that you're moving this fast. You reach the supply tube. The bell sits neatly where you left it. Next to it, to letter. No name. No address. Just 5 words. Turn the third light now. You drop it like it burns. You didn't know there was a third light. The second was already wrong enough. But your hands move. Your legs carry you up, past your bunk room, past a locked store closet that now clicks open on its own. Inside, a lens you've never seen before. Not modern, not even Victorian. Glass with a golden shimmer. Organic curves. Like something that grew. You don't ask how it fits into the lamp. You just install it. The flame catches without a spark. The room fills with sound. Not voices. Not wind. A choir. Low, reverent, vibrating through the walls. Through your ribs. The tower begins to turn. Not the lens. The tower. You hold the railing. It's warm. Almost soft again. Breathing. Outside. The sea's gone again. In its place. A vast canyon of lightless mist. Like the earth opened to exhale its final secret. You peer down. Shapes drip below. Long twisting. Some blink. Some wait. You blink too, and the lens, your new third light, projects a symbol onto the mist. A massive sigil, carved in refracted gold and amber. The mist parts. Beneath it, a structure. A cathedral, or citadel, or... No, a mirror of your own tower. But upside down. Rooted into the abyss. And from its lantern room, someone stares back. Historians still argue whether the so-called twin lights phenomenon, reported by sailors in the North Sea in 1891, was a natural mirage or a mass hallucination. Multiple vessels described 2 beams rotating in opposite directions, one from the sky, one from the sea, both synchronized. When authorities arrived, no such beams were found. The person watching you from the inverted tower holds something. It's the bell. They raise it. They ring it. And the sound doesn't travel to your ears. It travels into your mind. 1,000 images flood you, of waves folding back into sky, of birds with too many wings, of charts that map only sleep and death, of keepers falling up instead of down, of you, in another uniform, standing in that other tower, smiling, your reflection from the lamp room, the one that didn't move. You stagger back. The image fades. The mist returns. The sea snaps back into place like a lid closing. The light dims. Your hands are still trembling as you extinguish the third flame. It doesn't go out right away. It negotiates. Finally, darkness. You slide down the wall, breathing ragged. You know what's next. Section 20. The last duty. The final wick. Whatever that means. You don't sleep that night. Not that you really sleep anymore. Not like before. It's more like brief lapses in consciousness while your body continues to watch, like your mind's just another wick flickering behind your eyes. You sit in the lantern room until morning, not waiting, for that implies choice. You're obeying. You know what comes next, the 4th wick. You ask yourself again if it's real, if any of this is. The letters, the bells, the twin tower, the breathing wood and golden lens, and that moment, when your reflection smiled on its own, but the salt is still in your lungs. Your knees still ache from the stairs. And when you glance into the corner of the lantern room, the wick is there, waiting, like it always was, as if you missed it until now. You wrap your coat tighter. You light it. You shouldn't. You do. It doesn't burn like the others. This flame is silent, completely soundless. Even the tower seems to hold its breath. It doesn't glow. It absorbs, like a hole punched through the fabric of vision. And the light it casts is not white or orange or even golden. It's the color of a dream you forget the moment you wake. The lens doesn't catch it. It passes through. Into you. You hear everything. Every gull, every fish, every speck of dust in every crevice of every wall, humming their own quiet songs. And under it all, beneath the waves and stone and root and ash, them, the keepers, everyone who came before you, not dead, not exactly. They're part of it now. Whispers in stone, sweat in the oil, their breaths in the fog that rolls too close, too high. 100 minds flicker like moths behind your eyelids. Their thoughts drift through yours. Don't answer it. Ring it once more. Shatter the light. Join us. You shake your head, your hands, your very bones. The flame pulses. The tower shifts. You're not in the lantern room anymore. You're somewhere else. Beneath. It's vast here. Cavernous. The walls are brick. Familiar. Lighthouse brick. But no sky above. Just a ceiling of mirrors. Each one showing a different version of the same tower. 100 iterations. 1,000. Different times. Different shapes. But always a tower. Always a flame. Always you. You walk forward. The bells are waiting. 5 of them now. 5, not 4. The 5th is enormous and made not of metal but smooth, translucent stone. Salt crystal and quartz. Shot through with veins of iron. You can see movement inside it, like clockwork, or like something trapped. It speaks without sound. Are you ready? Your knees buckle, but you do not fall. Do you accept the final watch? You hesitate, and then you ask, what happens if I don't? The air shudders. The mirrors crack. The other towers begin to flicker and fade. The 5th bell begins to toll. Each chime erases something. The logbook, the flame, the gulls, the fog, your name. You try to hold on to it, but it slips, oily and soft, through the gaps in your memory. You collapse to your knees, gripping the cold floor. Then, silence. The bell stops. You're back in the lantern room. The 4th flame is gone. Outside, the sky is pink and bruised. The sea unusually still. The kind of quiet that comes just before a storm or something stranger. Mainstream historical fact. The 19th century saw a rash of resignations among long-term lighthouse keepers. Many cited displacement of the soul or loss of presence as reasons. These weren't official medical terms, but a language passed between keepers. The final straw, according to some reports, was always a dream. The same dream. You walk downstairs. The stairs sigh beneath you. The logbook is closed. The bell is gone. In your bunk, your coat is folded, boots polished, and on your pillow, your name, written neatly, in your handwriting. But you don't remember writing it. The wind has returned. Soft, familiar, almost like breath against your ear. You pour tea, sit at the window, and watch the sea like it's an old friend returning from somewhere dark and deep. The final wick is not a light. It's an ending, or perhaps a beginning. You understand now. You don't keep the light. You are the light, or what it becomes when no one else is left. Historians still argue whether the stories from keepers during the late 1800s, tales of living towers, sentient fogs, and the 5th bell, were product of isolation or something more sinister. Many lighthouse logs from this era are missing final entries. Some end mid-sentence. Some contain no ink at all, just indentations, as if the writer was still there, pressing down long after the words stopped coming. You look out. A boat approaches. Small, quiet, a young man aboard. New boots, bright coat, pale face. A replacement. He'll learn. He'll hear the 1st bell, see the 2nd flame, fight the 3rd lens, fear the 4th wick, and maybe reach the 5th. You smile and rise to meet him. You open the door. The wind does not resist you. You step outside, into the hush of dawn, into the long breath between tides, into the last watch, into everything. Your eyes
sleep
soften as the light dims
Not
behind
that you
them.
really sleep
The
anymore.
sea, once loud and
like
full of
before.
questions, it's
Now
more
I'm
like
the lullaby
brief
beneath
lapses
your
in
ribs.
consciousness while
An
your
old
body
rhythm,
continues to
slow
watch,
and steady,
like
older
your
than
mind's just
tides,
another wick flickering
deeper than
behind
sleep.
your eyes.
Your hands
You
are
sit
no
in the
longer
lantern
trembling.
room until
The
morning.
tower,
Not
is
waiting
impossible
for that
living
implies
place
choice,
fades into the hush,
becoming not a structure
You
but
know
a
what
memory,
comes next,
flickering
the
gently
fourth
like a
wick.
lantern behind
You
your
ask
thoughts.
yourself again if it's
the
real.
bells are quiet
If
now.
any of this is,
the voices,
the
too.
letters,
All that
the
remains
bells,
is a steady breath of
the
the
twin
ocean,
tower,
and the calm
breathing
certainty that
wood
you
and
kept
golden
the watch
lens,
and
and
became
that
part
moment,
of the song
that
that will
moment,
carry the next soul
when your
safely
reflection
through the dark.
smiled on its own.
Let your breathing
But the
match
salt
the
is
waves.
still in your lungs.
Let your shoulders
Your
sink
knees
into the pillow.
still ache from
Let the
stairs.
last trace of flame
And when you
dim
glance
into the
behind
corner
your
of the
eyes,
lantern room.
no more
the wick
doors
is there.
No more
waiting,
stairs.
like it
No
always
more
was.
mirrors or letters
as if you missed
or
it until
unfamiliar
now.
names.
You wrap
Only
your coat
rest.
tighter.
Only
you light
see.
it. Only
You shouldn't.
silence. You do.
You made it.
It doesn't
Sleep
burn
well,
like the others.
keeper.
This flame is silent, completely soundless. Even the tower seems to hold its breath. It doesn't glow. It absorbs, like a hole punched through the fabric of vision. And the light it casts is not white or orange or even golden. It's the color of a dream you forget the moment you wake. The lens doesn't catch it. It passes through. Into you. You hear everything. Every gull, every fish, every speck of dust in every crevice of every wall, humming their own quiet songs. And under it all, beneath the waves and stone and root and ash, them, the keepers, everyone who came before you, not dead, not exactly. They're part of it now. Whispers in stone, sweat in the oil, their breaths in the fog that rolls too close, too high. 100 minds flicker like moths behind your eyelids. Their thoughts drift through yours. Don't answer it. Ring it once more. Shatter the light. Join us. You shake your head, your hands, your very bones. The flame pulses. The tower shifts. You're not in the lantern room anymore. You're somewhere else. Beneath. It's vast here. Cavernous. The walls are brick. Familiar. Lighthouse brick. But no sky above. Just a ceiling of mirrors. Each one showing a different version of the same tower. 100 iterations. 1,000. Different times. Different shapes. But always a tower. Always a flame. Always you. You walk forward. The bells are waiting. 5 of them now. 5, not 4. The 5th is enormous and made not of metal but of smooth, translucent stone. Salt crystal and quartz, shot through with veins of iron. You can see movement inside it, like clockwork, or like something trapped. It speaks without sound. Are you ready? Your knees buckle, but you do not fall. Do you accept the final watch? You hesitate, and then you ask, what happens if I don't? The air shudders. The mirrors crack. The other towers begin to flicker and fade. The 5th bell begins to toll. Each chime erases something. The logbook, the flame, the gulls, the fog, your name. You try to hold on to it, but it slips, oily and soft, through the gaps in your memory. You collapse to your knees, gripping the cold floor. Then, silence. The bell stops. You're back in the lantern room. The 4th flame is gone. Outside, the sky is pink and bruised. The sea unusually still. The kind of quiet that comes just before a storm or something stranger. Mainstream historical fact. The 19th century saw a rash of resignations among long-term lighthouse keepers. Many cited displacement of the soul or loss of presence as reasons. These weren't official medical terms, but a language passed between keepers. The final straw, according to some reports, was always a dream. The same dream. You walk downstairs. The stairs sigh beneath you. The logbook is closed. The bell is gone. In your bunk, your coat is folded, boots polished, and on your pillow, your name, written neatly, in your handwriting. But you don't remember writing it. The wind has returned. Soft, familiar, almost like breath against your ear. You pour tea, sit at the window, and watch the sea like it's an old friend returning from somewhere dark and deep. The final wick is not a light. It's an ending, or perhaps a beginning. You understand now. You don't keep the light. You are the light, or what it becomes when no one else is left. Historians still argue whether the stories from keepers during the late 1800s, tales of living towers, sentient fogs, and the fifth bell, were product of isolation or something more sinister. Many lighthouse logs from this era are missing final entries. Some end mid-sentence. Some contain no ink at all, just indentations, as if the writer was still there, pressing down, long after the words stopped coming. You look out. A boat approaches. Small, quiet, a young man aboard. New boots, bright coat, pale face. A replacement. He'll learn. He'll hear the first bell, see the second flame, fight the third lens, fear the fourth wick, and maybe reach the fifth. You smile and rise to meet him. You open the door. The wind does not resist you. You step outside, into the hush of dawn, into the long breath between tides, into the last watch, into everything.